Welcome back to Classy and Sassy. I'm your host, Erica Regino. Now, I'm going to keep this, I guess you could say short and sweet, because I want to get straight to the point on this one. I was not planning to talk about relationships today. Actually, to be honest, I had an entirely different topic in mind until social media decided otherwise. If you spent more than, 10 minutes scrolling online lately, which you're good if you have, you've probably seen some of these discussions. Men will say stuff, that basically equates to a woman should be his peace. They end a lot of things with "be my peace." Within seconds lately, someone is in his comments saying, "Nah, we're going to be your karma." Now, I'm going to admit, sometimes it's kind of funny. And then another person jumps in talking about how women should be more submissive. Someone else starts quoting Bible verses. Somebody else announces they'll die alone before they let a man lead anything or lead them anywhere. And before you know it, we got 300 comments deep. People are mad. Nobody's even talking about the same thing anymore. And I'll be honest, some of those "be his karma," those comments kind of make me laugh sometimes. They really do. But after the entertainment wears off, you have to think about it. What if the entire conversation, the entire argument, isn't really about being someone's peace? And what if it's not even about submission either? What if we're arguing over words that everybody defines differently and means something different to all of us? Because I honestly don't think everybody means it the same way. Take the word peace. You ask, 10 different people what it means in a relationship when they say, "I want her to, be my peace." And you're going to get 10 different answers. Some people hear peace and they think no constant arguing, no unnecessary drama. A relationship that feels emotionally safe. However, other people hear peace and they immediately think, "Oh, so you don't want me to disagree with you?" Neck rolling off. "You want me to smile while you're wrong. You want me to quietly accept behavior that I wouldn't recommend to my worst enemy." Those are two completely different definitions. And let me just backtrack here. When I say neck roll, I mean the way I get when I'm having an attitude before somebody writes me and says I shouldn't say that. Neither side realizes you're answering different questions. Then we get to the word that sends people into cardiac arrest: submission. You need to submit. Can we just acknowledge that somewhere along the way, this word, it's gotten some baggage? For many women, that word does not bring up images of loving relationships. Let's be honest. It brings up stories. Stories where, as women, we lose our identities, we end up being controlled, or we stay in situations we should have left a long, long time ago. So when some women hear the word submit, we're not reacting to the dictionary definition. We're reacting to the experience. Or perhaps we're reacting to our mother's experience, our grandmother's. But can you really blame them? At the same time, I've also heard men explain what they mean when they say they want to lead their household. Some of them describe leadership as responsibility. Protect, provide, the person who makes the difficult decisions, someone who puts the family's needs ahead of their own, being accountable when things go wrong. That is very different from saying, I'm the boss, so you do it because I said so. No, let's also be honest. Not every man means leadership the same way. Some of them absolutely do mean control. Just like every woman hears the word and not every woman hears it and assumes the best from it. Just like that, there are men who don't mean it in the best way. And that's what makes these difficult conversations. We're taking our personal experience and assuming everyone else is operating from the same place. But can we be honest for a second? One of the biggest reasons this conversation gets so heated is because women today have lived very different lives than women a generation or two ago. Many women have spent years doing everything themselves, working, paying bills, raising children, making every major decision, fixing whatever the heck breaks, scheduling everything, carrying the emotional load. And sometimes it's because there was no choice. Sometimes because the person behind them or beside them wasn't actually sharing the responsibility they should have. After enough years of doing that, independence stops being a personality trait and it just becomes survival. Once survival becomes your normal, trusting someone else enough to carry part of that weight does not happen overnight. You're not going to suddenly wake up one morning and think, you know what? I'm completely comfortable giving up control today. Life doesn't work like that. But here's the other side of that conversation. Sometimes independence becomes so comfortable that we stop allowing people to help us. Not because they're incapable. It's because we've convinced ourselves it's just easier to do everything ourselves. If you've ever caught yourself saying, I'll just do it. I don't need anybody. It's faster if I handle it. Congratulations. You, like many of us, have been carrying too much for too long. Doesn't make you weak. Doesn't make you wrong. But it might make receiving love a little harder than giving it. Now, before anybody starts typing me an email, I am not saying women should stop being independent. I'm absolutely not. I'm also not saying men should automatically be the leader in every relationship. I'm saying every healthy relationship gets to define those roles for themselves. The internet doesn't get a vote. Here's another thing I've noticed. Social media loves extremes. According to some corners of the internet, every man wants a woman who never questions him. And every woman wants a man who's 6'3", makes 7 figures, cooks, cleans, communicates perfectly, has emotional intelligence, owns real estate, and somehow still has time to fold the fitted sheets. The algorithm loves that nonsense because outrage kicks. Normal doesn't. Healthy relationships don't usually go viral. Nobody records themselves saying, my husband and I had a respectful disagreement, listened to each other, and worked it out. That doesn't get 2 million views. Chaos does. Conflict does. Division does. So we keep consuming the loudest opinions until we start believing they're the majority. I don't think they are. I think most of us want remarkably similar things. Simple. To feel loved, feel respected, to feel heard, to feel safe, to trust the people we're building a life with. The problem is we all use different words to describe those same desires. So maybe the better question isn't, should women submit? Or should men lead? Maybe the better question is, have both people become the kind of partner who deserves trust? Because leadership without accountability becomes control. Submission without trust becomes fear. Independence without vulnerability becomes isolation. Peace without honesty becomes silence. None of those things build a healthy relationship. Here's what I'd love to see happen. The next time someone says, I want peace in a relationship, instead of immediately assuming you know what he means, ask, what does peace look like to you? When someone says they believe the man in the relationship should lead, ask what leadership means to them. If somebody says they want an equal partnership, ask what that actually looks like in everyday life. You might be surprised by the answers. Or you might realize you were never arguing with the person. You're arguing with your own definition of a word that they weren't even using in the same way. And I think that's something worth thinking about. As always, thank you so much for spending part of your day with me. If this episode made you think, I'd love to hear your perspective. Not whose side you're on. I'm actually more interested in this. When you hear the words peace, leadership, submission, or partnership, what do those words mean to you? Because I have a feeling that's where the real conversation is going to begin. Until next time, stay classy. And maybe ask one more question before you assume you already know the answer.